Apple says OpenAI told candidates to bring stolen parts to their job interviews for show and tell. That claim is sitting in a federal lawsuit right now, filed Friday, and I read all 41 pages, so you don't have to. And the wildest stuff never made the headlines. Let me show you. Hey, Cal here. Appreciate you all joining me. If you're a content creator and you're constantly looking for what should I post next, this is the place for you. Welcome. So Friday afternoon, Apple walks into the federal courthouse in San Jose and sues OpenAI. And not just OpenAI, they named two of their former employees by name, plus IO. That's that hardware company that Jony Ive co-founded that OpenAI bought for about $6.5 billion last year sometime. So trade secret theft and breach of contract. The jury demand. Now, everybody covered the headline this weekend, which is expected to do so. We're going to do what we do on this show, which is actually read the actual document, which you can see here on the left. Because Apple's lawyers put the whole thing in one sentence paragraph right at the top, this case is about Apple's former employees stealing Apple's trade secrets for the benefit of OpenAI. That's the claim. Now, let me introduce you to the characters in this show. Character 1. Chang Lu, 8 years at Apple, is a senior electrical engineer on the iPhone line. He leaves in January to join OpenAI. And Apple says he actually skipped the exit interview, he ignored the offboarding emails, and he kept one of his Apple laptops. And then, this is where it kind of gets good, right? A few weeks later, he discovers a bug that allows him to still have authentication back into Apple's internal cloud storage. So he's an OpenAI employee at this point. And so what does Apple say he did when he found this hole? Report it? This is a real quote from the filing. A message to a friend who still worked at Apple. LOL. I found out I can access the network storage. So funny. Her reply. And she's still an Apple employee, mind you. I'm ready. Apple says that over the next several weeks, he downloaded dozens of confidential files, including one compilation over 1,000 pages long while he was building hardware for OpenAI. And when they wanted to talk without getting caught, Apple says he moved the conversation to a separate messaging app in the filing's words to try to avoid detection. So that's the first character. Character number 2 is even bigger. Tang Tan. 24 years at Apple. Right now, he's the vice president of product design. He was the vice president of product design for iPhone and Apple Watch, but today he's at OpenAI. He's their chief hardware officer, the man building their secret device that they've been working on. And Apple's claim here is that this isn't just one guy sneaking files out the building. Their claim is that this man runs his hiring process like a collection operation. So Apple says Tan's, he directed job candidates, people that are still actually working at Apple that are interviewing at OpenAI to bring, quote, actual parts from Apple to their OpenAI interviews for, quote, show and tell. That's the filing's own language. I didn't make it up. That's in paragraph 9, and you can see it here for yourself. And they get very specific about the shopping list. Batteries, SIP, that's systems in package, logic boards, shields, real components that are coming out of Apple's hardware labs into a competitor's conference room. My favorite detail in the whole document. One candidate was apparently surprised by this whole thing because he, quote, didn't even know he could take those from the office. It's probably because you can. That's the whole lawsuit. And it allegedly goes further. Apple says that Tan dropped internal Apple code names in interviews to pump candidates for unannounced product info. It says he kept an internal Apple security document, the offboarding checklist, the thing that Apple uses to catch people taking stuff on the way out, and OpenAI staff pass it around to new recruits like a cheat sheet. They allegedly call it a checklist that Tang put together, but it's an actual Apple document. And so this is not stuff that I'm making up. These are all, Apple's accusations in the lawsuit that you can see in the 41-page document for yourself. I've got some excerpts here on the left for you to take a look at. And when recruits are about to resign, Apple says OpenAI coaches them. Don't sign anything at the exit interview. And if Apple asks you to sign anything, let us know ASAP. That's the quote. So OpenAI's response in full, because they deserve their say, and it's pretty short. We have no interest in other companies' trade secrets. We remain focused on building innovative technology that empowers people everywhere. How sweet. That's it. That's their whole statement. Okay, so why a trade secret lawsuit? Quick education, because I think this matters, right? So a patent is public. You publish the invention, everybody can read it. In exchange, the government gives you a monopoly for 20 years. A trade secret is actually the complete opposite of that. It's protected as only as long as you keep it a secret. So Apple's manufacturing know-how, the supplier list, the metal finishes, how they actually build 1 billion phones every year, none of that is patented. It's a secret though. And since 2016, there's a federal law, the Defend Trade Secrets Act, that lets you sue in federal court when someone walks off with your secrets. So here's the part that people, most of them don't really know. California banned non-compete agreements. Not recently. I mean, it's been banned since 1872. I mean, that's like gold rush era before the light bulb. So when 400 plus of your engineers walk across town over to OpenAI, that's the real number in the filing. So you can't stop them. You can't stop a single one of them from leaving, right? Leaving is legal. We can all quit our jobs and go do something else. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And knowing things in your head is also legal. But taking the files, the parts, the documents, that's the line. So a trade secret suit is really the only weapon that Apple has here. So one more receipt from the timeline. So Apple says they wrote to OpenAI back in February, hey, we think our confidential information is walking into your door. Can we just chat about it? In the filings words, OpenAI never responded. So 5 months later, we get this lawsuit. So here's my take. Everybody's covering this like it's about just punishing those two guys. Like, look at what Apple actually asked the judge for: a preliminary injunction. So just freeze it, right? Stop OpenAI from using any of it now and before the trial. Apple isn't even suing for money. Apple is suing for the clock. OpenAI told the world it finished its first device, the prototypes of it at least, in November. So if a judge freezes the parts of the program that touch Apple know-how, discovery alone can eat 2 years. So for a device company that doesn't exist yet, time is really the whole product. And in a state with no non-competes, this might become the playbook for the future. You can't really stop the talent from leaving. I mean, not really. You just can't stop the talent from leaving. So you make the documents radioactive. So every AI lab hiring hardware people this morning, they're probably rewriting their interview process, because this is quite a lesson learned. And the detail that I don't think anyone's really covering, right? You can find it here, footnote 13. It's the bottom of page 15. Apple and OpenAI, they have a deal, right? ChatGPT is built into Siri. And the filing goes out of its way to say, quote, that agreement is not an issue here. So if you sit with that for just a second, right? Apple is suing the company it ships on the iPhone. The suit and the partnership, they just run parallel to each other. That's big tech to me in 2026, right? Like your fiercest competitor is also your vendor, and the lawyers, right? Like that's their job. They just keep those lanes painted. They run in parallel. No issues there. So you can watch three things with me. One, I mean, the injunction hearing is going to be fascinating, but it'll be interesting if Apple ends up winning, because I mean, I think the OpenAI device is going to slip, period. Two, whether OpenAI will end up countersuing and on what grounds, because that's generally the standard next move. Three, who else gets this treatment? Because OpenAI is definitely not the only lab that's been hiring out of Cupertino. So my desk found this filing, pulled every quote you just saw straight out the court record overnight before I sat down. It's called nicheangle.com, free to start, no card. I'll be back tomorrow.